Okay, so this week, Taiwan's property market went on an absolute roller coaster. In just a handful of days, we got news of a massive, record-breaking construction boom, followed by a really dire warning of a total market shutdown, and then a flat-out denial from the central bank. It's a story with super high stakes, a lot of conflicting signals, and one huge question. Is this market booming, or is it a bubble that's just about to pop?
So let's kick things off with this number 70,000. That's the number of new housing permits that were given out in Taiwan in just the first half of this year. And that's not just a big number, it's an all-time record. Now, on the surface, that looks like a construction boom, right? I mean, developers are building faster than we have ever seen before.
But right when you think the picture is clear, it gets, well, complicated. Take a look at the property sales for July. Compared to the month before, things are up. That's a good sign. But if you compare it to the same time last year, sales are actually down. So what you've got is a market that's somehow heating up and cooling down at the exact same time. And that is a perfect recipe for uncertainty. And that brings us to the core question of this whole explainer. You've got record construction on one side, but these really mixed signals on the sales side. So, are we looking at a boom that's got legs, or is this the beginning of a bust? Let's dig into the forces pulling this market in different directions.
You know, these conflicting numbers aren't just stats on a page. They're symptoms of a market that is under some serious pressure. Some analysts are already calling it a stress test, particularly in those areas where the supply of new homes is just exploding. This is not business as usual. This is a market at a really critical turning point.
And stepping right into the middle of all this tension is a pretty big voice, real estate expert Li Teng-Zheng. He's looking at all the same data we are, but where some people see a boom, he sees a major crisis brewing right under the surface. And he did not mince words. His warning was incredibly stark. He said the mortgage rush could paralyze the entire real estate market. He's not talking about a small downturn here. He's describing the whole system seizing up, grinding to a halt, specifically because of how all these new homes are being financed. Now, Lei didn't just throw out a vague warning. He got specific. He pointed to what he called the 8 major chaos. This is basically a list of really destabilizing trends he's seeing. Things like banks offering these crazy long mortgage terms to people who probably shouldn't get them, or a huge spike in high-risk interest-only loans. He saw this as a mad dash for loans that was cracking the very foundation of the market.
So for him, the real problem wasn't just high prices or too much building. No, the core threat, the thing that could bring it all down, was this chaotic, frantic rush for loans that's creating massive instability from within.
But he's not just the guy who shouts, "Fire!" He also came up with a plan to put it out. And that brings us to his 4 proposed solutions, basically a roadmap designed to pull the market back from the edge and get things under control.
He laid out a really clear 4-step plan. First, he said, you've got to calm down the lending. Make the loan-to-value ratio stricter so that buyers have more of their own money in the game. Second, bring some rationality back, maybe with a temporary tax on flipping houses to discourage speculation. His third and fourth points were all about preventing that market paralysis by making developer financing more transparent and, crucially, by having regulators step in decisively to fix all this underlying chaos.
So, you've got an expert screaming about chaos and offering up this big plan. Naturally, all eyes turn to the main regulator in the room, Taiwan's central bank. What were they going to do? Were they going to act on this warning?
Well, their response was, let's just say, very calm. Instead of some dramatic action, the central bank basically said it was only thinking about making minor adjustments to its current rules. That's a huge contrast to the urgent, sweeping changes Li Teng-Zheng was calling for.
And to really get where the bank is coming from, you have to understand one of their main tools, mortgage aggregate controls. Basically, this is a hard cap on how much money a bank is allowed to lend out for real estate. Think of it like the main brake pedal the government can use to slow down a market that's getting way too hot.
And the bank really drove this point home when a rumor started flying around that maybe they'd create a loophole for urban renewal projects, that those loans wouldn't count towards the cap. The bank's response was fast and blunt. They shut it down immediately, calling it purely speculation.
So the takeaway here is pretty simple. Even with all the pressure from the market and these serious warnings from experts, the regulators are holding their ground. They are not interested in making big changes or carving out easy exceptions that could just add more fuel to the fire. All of this leaves the market stuck in this really fascinating high-stakes standoff. You've got the raw momentum of a record-building boom on one side, you've got an expert warning of total paralysis on the other, And right in the middle, you have a regulator who's just focused on slow, cautious stability.
So let's recap where everyone stands. You have the market itself, which is building at a record pace, but also showing some real signs of volatility. You have the expert, Lee Tung-jung, who's warning of chaos and demanding big reforms. And then you have the regulator, the central bank, which is holding firm and just trying to keep things stable. Three powerful forces, all pulling in completely different directions.
And that brings us to the final burning question. With an expert warning that the entire market could just seize up and regulators who are absolutely refusing to budge on their cautious policies, well, something's got to give. The big question for Taiwan's housing market isn't just boom or bust anymore. Now, it's who is going to blink first.